Hello, and thank you for using the APIsec Scanner. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to set up your scanner to check for vulnerabilities related to Broken Object Level Authorization, or BOLA. What this means is each time you run a scan, you'll be testing to ensure users are not able to access resources that don't belong to them. This is a critical part of assessing your API for what are commonly called business logic flaws. To maximize application security, we recommend following the app model during the onboarding process. For this tutorial, I've been using an application that has already been onboarded through the app model up to Configure BOLA. We can get started by clicking on Configure for BOLA in the app model. If you'd like to learn more about BOLA testing and impact, take a second to read our information tooltip at the top of the page here. If you already understand how the workflow looks for testing BOLA, go ahead and click Get Started. This is where we'll provide the scanner with information to craft an attack scenario. It's capable of initiating an attack scenario in a couple of different ways. I'm going to show you both so that we can see what it looks like when a setting fails and succeeds. In either case, your first step is to provide a name for the attack. Next, you'll need to select which authenticated users you would like to be represented in the attack scenario. This means choosing which users will be attempting to access each other's resources. In our example, I'll use all three that we see here. Click Next. Now we need to select a base endpoint type. This is where the two types of scenarios I was talking about come into play. We can either create a new resource and then use that resource to test all related endpoints, or we can select a specific resource and provide information about it to test simple scenarios. For this first example scenario, in which we want the scenario setup to fail, I'll be using a create resource endpoint. Now I need to provide which endpoint I want to hit to create the resource we're going to use. This is made easy by the search bar. I'll be choosing this endpoint, which creates a new vehicle object and associates it with an authenticated user. For this demo application, there is no cleanup endpoint for the selected resource. If you have a cleanup endpoint in your application, you would list it here so that the demo resource is deleted each time a scan is run. Now that we have our resource creation set up, let's create a business flow to follow with it. This means creating the list of endpoints we want to use to test our created resource ID. For example, we have an endpoint here that uses the vehicle ID to determine the vehicle's GPS location. We definitely don't want other users having access to that. We have all of our endpoints selected for this simple attack scenario workflow, so let's go ahead and click Test Scenario. As we expected, the readiness status of this scenario has not been accepted. We know this by referring to the pending icon in the status column. We can click this icon here under Logs to find out what went wrong. I see. It looks like we failed to create the resource when validating the attack scenario. If we look at the response body, we can actually see that the vehicle we tried to create already exists. Scrolling back up to the request body, we can see a PIN code and VIN number were provided in this request. These values have been pulled from our default parameters that were set up while following the app model. So we just need to go change those to be valid and try again. For now, let's look at the other type of attack scenario. We'll be able to see a successful status that way too. So we'll click Add Attack Scenario here at the top. Once again, name the scenario and assign all users you'd like to include in the attack. Click Next. Now we're going to choose Select Resource as our base endpoint type. I have an order ID number I know is associated with my BOLA user, so I'm going to choose that endpoint. Oh, here it is right here. Now I have to provide the resource ID I want to test. In this case, I know my BOLA user owns resource ID 473, so I'm going to use that. Next, I have to select my resource owner, which, as I just said, is the BOLA user, and select the access scope. In this case, the resource should only be accessible to the resource's owner. We'll click Next. We do have to create a workflow here just like we did with the create resource scenario. We want to select our initial base endpoint again here so that we can test it against our other users. The initial selection only verifies the owner of the resource. We can see here there's also a put endpoint associated with the order ID, so let's include that in the test as well. Let's test this scenario and see what happens. We get a status ready. What this means is that every time we run a scan, We're going to verify that all selected users in the attack scenario are unable to access the chosen endpoints with the provided resource ID, with the exception of the resource owner who is included in the scenario in this case. If at any point a development change were to cause these access permissions to change, the scanner would immediately notify us and provide us with guidance on remediation. I hope this helps you set up your own BOLA scenarios. If you have any questions, please use the Write to Us feature so we can further assist you. Happy testing.